Hi, everyone. Today I'll be exploring ideologies of the Italian native speaker through models of social cognition. Feel free to pause and read about Dr. Alim's firsthand experience in Italy, which I can attest to. I've seen happen where people of color are racialized very overtly and violently in public. I'm not going to spend any time talking about racial linguistic ideologies or sociolinguistic perception in Italy for the sake of time, but feel free to check these resources. And also just in light of this lack of literature and also Dr. Alim's experience, I'm exploring more covert bias through language attitude study. So examining two generations of Italians to see if they have any diverging attitudes towards notions of the Italian native speaker with the increased immigration and diversity of Italy in the recent decades. And I'm also examining reverse linguistic stereotyping, so seeking to understand if non-linguistic information like race or gender affects perception. And not a focus today, but part of the study is examining biases or implicit and explicit biases as distinct cognitive processes. So today I am I'm examining social cognition through the implicit association test, the match guys technique, and quantitative direct questioning to elicit a range of biases. My participant age pool was recruited through Prolific, and all were born in Italy or grew up in Italy, and not a very diverse group from the older group, but that could just be the nature of Prolific. But ever so slightly more diverse in the younger group, but still pretty white Italian European. So the match guides again is designed to examine reverse linguistic stereotyping. So I have the same voice from a white female and white male Roman Italian paired with each photo of the man and woman respectively. These photos were normed with an Italian audience and categorized as being of African descent, East Asian descent, and white or Italian European descent. Um, and those voices are compared as well as they're compared between gender groups. And so we have those gender and race of the person in the photo as variables, as well as participant age group to examine generation differences. We also, through EFA, exploratory factor analysis, we're able to divide in the questions, the prompts, into two dependent variables: authentic native speaker status and public communication prestige. So we have a main effective race of the person in the photo, where we see the white folks rated more favorably or most favorably, and then the Black folks, and then the East Asian folks. So we see a kind of a hierarchy here, which slightly disappears when we examine the interactions between gender, race, and age. We see actually East Asian women and the East Asian woman in the photo paired with the voice being rated far less favorably than the Black or white woman in the photo, as well as less favorably than the Asian man. In the IAT design, we have two experiments, one pairing the photos normed as being of Italian descendants with those of East Asian descendants, and then again with African descendants. And the attributes are related to language appropriateness. And here's a practice trial example where you would just be sorting the exemplars. And then here's the experimental trial where you're sorting the exemplar and you have the pairing of the concept and the attribute. So the results indicate that we have faster reaction times when the Italian descendants is paired with the good attributes. And this might indicate that those are early learned biases among the participants, and just kind of what they are exposed to at a very young age. In direct questioning, we again employ exploratory factor analysis, and we get two categories of variables. We have Italianness, or something akin to authenticity, and native speaker status. And we see no mean differences between the groups. So both groups are kind of their explicit biases are being expressed in similar ways, though. And I could say on the more positive side, though we do see it a little bit lower with Italianness. So Italian is still maybe seen to be related to having an Italian blood, or to having a descendants in the Italian nation. Oops. So we do see reverse linguistic stereotyping occurring. This supports the existing literature that has examined reverse linguistic stereotyping as related to people of Asian descent. This experiment brings in an intersectional perspective, which includes gender, which needs to be explored further to really kind of tease apart the perception here, because I don't think that that Black people in Italy are necessarily seen as being native Italian speakers, but there could have been just a really strong effect occurring in this experiment. But that's just from my anecdotal evidence. And there are no generational differences and biases. So what is this revealing about how people are educated, how they talk about racism and xenophobia, and really what is going on politically in Italy, which we've seen an increase in xenophobia in recent years. We also see more positively expressed explicit biases, but we see when we go back to Dr. Leem's quote, behavior is another indicator of the bias that we're not necessarily able to measure in these kinds of experiments. We do see an increase in anti-Asian crimes since the pandemic began, and this is bolstered by the misogynistic status quo that is Italian society. So just a particular disdain towards women in very overt ways. Italian as an ethno-racial category, just to conclude here, is in really high fluctuation. So who's a native speaker is really a colonial construct, because at some point, Southern Italians were not considered to be Italian, and they were othered. They were the dark-skinned other. So the idealized Italian is also very much a part of the Italian social and economic capital landscape. So tourism is Italian's #1 industry, and who is the idealized Italian, not just linguistically, but visually, economically, and just personably. And in terms of residency and citizenship laws in Italy and the EU, we do see that whiteness and this idea of a pure bloodline or of a bloodline period is an inherent component of Italianness and really related to the national borders of language as well. Here are my references, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.